and welcome to the Super 70 Podcast, Special Report with Dave Anderson. If you're listening to this, then you know the format of this show is effectively a film commentary. You turn on the film and watch it with me, scene by scene, while I comment on what's going on visually or scenically or analytically or whatever that's going on screen. Last month I asked a friend of mine, Dave Anderson, to come onto the show and watch The Terminator with me. We had so much fun that Dave recommended that I turn the mics on while we shot the shit for a couple of hours after the podcast was over. This special report is the result of that fine night, about 6 beers, and the enjoyment of 2 friends who had not seen each other for a number of years. In fact, I saw Dave more when I lived in another country, and that's sad. The result of that night is the following, which I hope you will enjoy, as we wax semi-intellectual about sequels, the state of the world, and human nature. Okay, so
bonus content,
special edition with Dave Anderson. We're just gonna
continue on with what we were doing during the podcast itself when we veered dramatically away from the on-screen action.
Yeah, and go over. Beer gonna explode.
Yeah,
should be fine.
Weird things are gonna happen.
That'll be interesting to fix in post.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's my Buddha beer. If you notice,
I did see.
It is like and that's the name of it. It's called
Buddha beer.
Mm-hmm. What are you drinking?
Oh, I am drinking Art Car, IPA, St. Arnold's.
You're an IPA guy.
I am an IPA guy.
Man, you couldn't pay me enough to be an IPA guy.
Oh, I'll bet you're wrong. There's some number. I don't know what it is. It's probably not as much as you think it is either. Well, once you get used to it, you can't not have it.
I don't want to get used to a beer.
What?
I don't want to get used to a beer. I want to drink it and enjoy it.
Wait a second.
You're saying you get used to IPA. I don't want to get used to it.
I wasn't really used to the taste of beer when I started drinking it, but I made some effort, and there you go. Turns out I like it. No, IPA. I remember the first time I had an IPA, or at least I remember the first time I recognized having an IPA and enjoying it. It was one of the first times where I went, oh, now I get it, right? It was like, there's lots of times the first, second, third time you do something, it isn't all that great, and you think it might be overrated. And for me, then IPA was one of those things where I don't remember the first few times I had it, because it was obviously not one of those things I liked, but the first time I had it and I liked it is really liked it. And it was Sierra Nevada's, and it wasn't even an IPA, it was their Pale Ale, which was a reasonably hoppy beer to me at that time. So,
I feel the same way about The Last Crusade.
That's an unexpected statement in correlation.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, I had to get used to it.
Yeah, is it good?
I think The Last Crusade is good. I think that it's not on par with.
No, it's not.
Temple of Doom or Raiders.
Is it okay? So if the Crystal Skull didn't exist,
would
it be good?
If the Crystal Skull did not exist, would The Last Crusade be good?
Right. Would you look back at it fondly? I
looked at it fondly before the Crystal Skull came out.
Okay. Well, that answers that.
I think that it's a good movie. I don't think that, as Spielberg movies goes, I think it's definitely in the bottom quartile.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
But, is it 1984? No, it's not 1984. 1941. That's his big bomb.
That's
from 1979.
Yeah, that's not good. That is not a good movie. I remember seeing that in theaters. It's not good. Even then, I was probably 7 when it came out. I was like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
Except for, of course,
John Belushi.
Hollywood, which I remember pretty vividly.
Well, I remember just looking at things and not understanding why they were supposed to be funny. Like Dan Aykroyd putting the hose on his head and then pushing the oranges into his eyes and saying, look, I'm a bug, I'm a bug. And
it wasn't funny. No, it was trying too hard. Everybody was coked up on that one. So, it's actually, it's funny you bring it up in regards to the Crystal Skull, right? I was thinking about that before I headed down. In that, all right, if I think of the great or the more popular movie series, right, where there's a direct sequel, I can't think of a whole lot that are batting very high percentage. So oh,
that's yours.
Why? Pause.
Pause.
Let
me pause.
Okay. Are we recording?
Yeah. So,
okay.
Go ahead.
No. It's one of those that we always talk about. I mean, there's not a whole lot of movies that have more than one good sequel, right? 2 is remarkably uncommon, right? And then you've got your series like, the Bourne Identity and the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Bond movies, right?
Yeah.
And the Marvel Cinematic Universe is kind of remarkable in my brain, in that from a pure entertainment standpoint, they're probably batting 75 to 80%.
Yeah.
Right? There's not a whole lot of god-awful ones. I mean, some of them are not great, but I don't know if any of them are terrible.
Right, like the two Hulks.
Yeah.
And actually the second Hulk is the only one that belongs in this universe that they're creating.
And I don't think it's terrible.
I don't think
it's not very
terrible.
good.
I don't
it's
prefer
not terrible. Right.
Yeah. I think, and largely, I think that it's just casting. Like, I think Edward Norton is miscast.
You think he's miscast? Because I think my memory of it is that he does fine as Banner, but it's overall the story itself just isn't, quote, fun. Right, and that's one of the things that the Marvel Universe does really, really well, is it really embodies fun. It's
right.
I mean, it's now a Disney-owned property, which is fitting because, to a certain degree, it's very much their Disney movies, not from a sanitized standpoint, but from it's from a workmanship, entertainment. They're really good at it. But
yeah, even Infinity War, it had moments in it that was just even fun. The fight on Titan was fun.
Right, I enjoyed that movie though.
Yeah,
I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, but sequels, I mean, you are right. I mean, Empire, to me, is the greatest sequel of all time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Really?
Yeah, well, it's my favorite movie.
It's your favorite. I guess that makes sense, and I can see where it would be your favorite sequel, but it's hard to say it's objectively better than Godfather 2, right?
Oh, like I don't think that Godfather 2 is better than Godfather 1.
Oh, see, I guess that's where that...
I'm outside the box on that one.
Well, I don't know if you're outside the box or not, but I know what you mean. That is generally considered...
Is generally considered the better one, yeah.
For some percentage of the population.
Yeah, no, I did... I wrote an article about this, by the way. You can find it on my website at www.thatdylandavis.com. It's in the film review section, where a friend of mine at work actually said, well, I found this review from Vincent Canby back in 1976 or when the movie came out, and it talked about how The Godfather Part 2 is just not a good movie. And he quoted Ebert's review too, and he sent me a third one. And I went back and read them all. And I think there's a lot of things going on. I'm not going to go through the detail because this is not the format for it. But the first thing that's going on is Vincent Canby is vacuous. And I don't know if he's still alive anymore. And I almost don't care. Mm-hmm. There are some people, and this is just my opinion, folks. There are some people that rode Pauline Kael's coattails like no fucking tomorrow.
Oh, sure.
Now, I don't particularly even like Pauline Kael. I got a lot of problems with her. I mean, she said, I only watch movies once, and she called herself a fan. Like, I don't think that's the definition of a fan if you're watching your favorite movie once or something.
Well, it all depends on how you look at it. If it's one of those things where I want to consume as much as possible, at least you can see that perspective.
Yeah. Well, and Hollywood's kicking out, and in the 60s, they were kicking out like 250 films a year. That was drastically cut down from like the 40s when it was like 450 a year. At least. Yeah. Right? I think the peak was 1945.
I don't doubt it. Which is ironic. It'd be 1945, but
right. Yeah. You would think that because of the war that it would be a smaller percentage, but anyway, like Canby and a lot of his, I don't want to say ilk, but there are a lot of people that made careers being film critics and analysts who had no business being film critics or analysts. And I'm not putting Ebert in with that.
Ebert's tremendous.
He is, and he was a huge fan of Kael,
right?
And greatly appreciated her and everything that she did. But she made sure that a lot of people had jobs who normally would not have jobs doing film reviews. Mm-hmm. And so Canby wrote this piece on The Godfather Part 2, and it was almost like he didn't even watch the fucking movie.
Okay.
Like, yeah, he complained about the Little Italy scene. The entire Don Fanucci walking down in the festival, and
what was his criticism?
He actually said it looked too authentic. It looked fake because it was too authentic. He said, there's a Model T truck coming by, and it's just
now you're just reaching.
Yeah, like come on, man. Like Coppola spent fucking months planning that.
Yeah.
And how many weeks shooting it?
Yeah, it's in my mind, you asked me what my favorite movie was earlier, right? And I don't have an answer, but there are a few movies that, they're that Mount Rushmore, and it's more than 4, of course, but it's like, okay, there's not a darn thing I would change about them.
Right.
And I think that Godfather 2 is one of those I wouldn't change a darn thing about. I couldn't say that about Apocalypse Now or...
Oh, wow.
I there's some parts that, it's really nitpicking, right? But it's one of those that, okay, it's not exactly what I would imagine, which doesn't make it, that it's valid criticism. This is, certainly coming from a guy who doesn't make movies. But, I do think that, Empire is a huge step up from Star Wars.
Yes.
And of that batch of films, the genre, or not the genre, but the series, I think it's probably the best in my opinion. But I don't know if I'd consider it the best sequel for me personally, because there are parts that if I watch it again, which I will watch again probably in the next 2 years, it's like, okay, that kind of drags. It just doesn't 100% work for me, which doesn't mean it's not a 9 out of a 10. It's just not a 10 out of a 10.
Yeah. Well, to a lot of people, particularly when we're on the meteor and the wormhole, it slows down so much. Or when Luke is on Dagobah, it really slows down a lot. But I can tolerate that. Like when I was a kid, I used to speed forward. Right. It's kind of like in Jedi when they kind of have the vignette type of sequence in the end when it goes between Endor and the space battle and the Emperor's throne room, and I used to fast forward through the Emperor's throne room because nothing's fucking going on. It's just...
It's a bunch of talk and not a whole lot of action.
Right, and it's just... Lando is just the fucking genesis of that entire sequence, and, Han is cool with everything that's going on in Endor, but it's really Lando in the space battle that's really drawing your interest.
Right.
Right, so I get that from Empire, but as I grow older and I age, and I have developed this very strange aspect of my personality, which
at least you acknowledge it,
fears and hates fascism in a very, almost like I served in a war and fought against it type of way, which I would never do. And too chicken shit.
Yeah. You've got some degree of emotional...
I do.
Which is almost irrational based on your history. It is.
Yeah. I wasn't born in 1920.
The amount of fascism we've actually... regardless of what anybody says in the current administration, we have no fascist component that's really
not yet. Yeah, it hasn't reared its ugly head. Right. But despite that, like when I see Empire, I see that struggle. Right. And that really, it's probably one of the reasons why I love The Night Porter.
Oh, okay. I've actually not seen that. I know what it is. But
yeah. And it draws me to a lot of films, and to find something like that argument in a sci-fi film is different and strange, and it's just why it draws me to it. A lot of people just like Empire because they like Empire.
Well, yeah. And that's that. I have to admit, that's an unexpected justification for your love for it. Yeah. Which is not bad. It's just unexpected.
Well, I think it says a lot about the things in all of us, like, Luke in the cave and Vader and it's actually me there. And I fight aspects of my personality when I see shit in the news, and I'm like, why can't they just take that person out and shoot them? Right. That's just a common thought process we all go through. I find it highly offensive that John Walker Lynn who's the American Taliban that they caught in Afghanistan, that he wasn't just taken up against a wall and shot.
You find it offensive.
I find it offensive that he was not killed, summarily executed as a U.S. citizen fighting his own country. The man is a fucking traitor.
Well, that is truly the definition.
He plea bargained down from 90 years to 20, and he's going to be on parole in 17.
Right.
That's offensive to me.
That I can see being offensive. I've not heard a lot of people say that, a public execution.
Well,
not being
it
performed
kind of public. It would be on a battlefield in a foreign country,
Yeah,
right?
no, I think.
But that's a fascist aspect of my personality that I fight and that I don't like. That we say things like that,
Was that
which
fascist?
is. I think that it's fascist to
just,
summarily execute people. Yes.
Well, I mean, when you say summarily, you.
Oh well, it's
often,
not random.
Well, no.
Right.
I mean, usually when someone says summarily, it means that there's been no evaluation of the facts, right? There's no proceeding.
Yes.
Right, and I don't.
In this case, they knew when they caught him that he was an American.
I think it still makes sense to do a complete proceeding, whatever that happens
Due
to
process.
be. Due process, exactly. But I don't think it's one of those things where it has to be a 7-year court case, but it is one of those where everybody should have their opportunity. And if you are found guilty and the prescribed judgment is execution, it's one of those that, okay, that's what it should be. Then that isn't necessarily fascist, right?
No. Due process is not fascist. That's the antithesis of fascist.
Right. So I don't know.
I don't think that you had a due process in a fascist society, whether it be Peronist, Argentina,
and that totally makes sense, right? But when you were saying that may be something that's fascist from you, I don't know if that's necessarily accurate.
Okay.
Right,
okay.
Because you're not recommending that would have happened without some degree of due process, right? And probably a high degree of due process, because I personally, as it currently stands, I'm in favor of the death penalty. Not for everybody, of course, but it's one of those things where I think it should be an available, mechanism in the justice system. But it's one of those that should be really, really vetted before, so to speak, executed.
And that's one of the problems with it, is not vetted correctly.
Well, yeah, it is, and everybody's definition of that could change.
Right.
But it's also one of those where some people would define having the death penalty in general as fascist, and I don't know if that's necessarily what I believe.
Well, I don't think in a particular situation, Texas may be a bad example, but in another state where you have a populace which votes for representatives, and those representatives decide that the will of the people is to approve the death penalty, or in California's case where they got rid of it in 1969 or whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
And lots of states did that. I think there's 36 states have it, but majority of them don't use it. There's a minority where they don't have it for. I think the will of the people is not a fascist.
Well, sometimes the people
through a representative democracy. There's so many qualifiers that we have to put into play now.
Right, and it's one of those where the will of the people is not always a good thing.
Right.
Right. I certainly don't think. I mean, I don't inherently disagree with electoral college. I'm just like, it serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Right, which I mean...
Well, that goes back to Tacitus, who said, just because it is popular... no, that's not what he said. Tacitus said, something is not necessarily right merely because the public thinks it's so.
Right, and Howard Cosell had something similar. I think it was... I can't recall what it was. I'm not even going to try to butcher it right now. But, the thing that, to me, would strike me as fascist is where, okay, let's say 50 states, you have 36 that for whatever reason don't think the death penalty should be established within the confines of their borders, and then the federal government just says, summarily overrules it, right? In that my mind, that's maybe totalitarian, but getting close to fascist. Of course, the nice thing about fascist is that they always have badass style. You got to give them that.
Well, they do, yeah. Hugo Boss made sure of that.
Yeah,
but I mean,
dope.
I see your point, because you have a situation like, circling back to movies,
Tarantino.
That's
what we're talking about.
Yeah, Tarantino's doing the Manson family film that's coming out.
But it won't be a Manson family
well,
movie.
no, it's on the fringes of it, right?
Right.
But that was a situation where there were 4 people that got the death penalty in California for that.
Right.
And the Supreme Court came down, I think it was 1972, and they ruled, of course, that it was unconstitutional all over the United States, and so everything automatically rolled back to life sentences. And in the case of Charles Manson, that was because he did not hold a weapon.
He didn't literally kill anybody.
Right. Because of that, all of a sudden, after 25 years, he was up for parole.
Right.
That's
which was never granted.
Right. Which of course not.
That's one of those things that does matter, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes, and what's her face? Not Van Houten or Susan Atkins. She passed away, I think. But one of the other girls she's up again for parole. She's every 2 years now.
Right, and under the parameters of that law, she probably should be. It's kind of weird to me, but okay, you're up doesn't mean you guaranteed get it, right? I don't know. I mean, my feelings on that stuff is, I'm a conservative, right? And I remember listening to, this was back in the, it was probably the early 90s. And, Rush Limbaugh is certainly not a personality who a high percentage of people say, yeah, that guy makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't think I necessarily am one of those guys. But I remember I was listening to an NBA broadcast for the Phoenix Suns. And he was a guest, and they were talking to him, and it said, oh, yeah, I'm guessing that if you were the guy that, that was in charge of everything, that traveling would be that, something over the top punishment, right? If this player traveled, then the game was over and the other team wins or something like that. He's like, no, it's not it at all. I'd say that if he's traveling, it's a turnover, and it would be the other ball's team. I would just call the law exactly how it's written. Right, which was one of those that to me made sense. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, you may agree or disagree with whatever the regulations or rules are, but accept the fact that, okay, this is what they are. And it's like, just follow the law. And to a certain degree, it's like, I think the, death penalty is justifiable in some circumstances, and probably, I think, justifiable in my opinion, and definition is probably greater than other people's. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it's one of those where, okay, California, they don't have it. And if you're eligible for parole, well, then I guess you should probably be eligible.
Yeah, but to me, it wasn't the will of the people for the Manson family to have parole. It was the will of the people in California for the Manson family to die.
Right. And
that was subverted by a Supreme Court that lived 3,000 miles away.
Yeah.
That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason the Supreme Court is what they are, right?
To protect the rights of the minority. That's what I look at the Supreme Court as, to make sure that the Constitution is upheld
consistently.
Yes, and the reason to implement the will of the majority without trampling on the rights of the minority.
Well, I mean, I don't think they should be. Wow, we're going way off.
We are, yeah.
But it's also one of those. I don't think that's the nice thing in a perfect world that the Supreme Court is set up for, is that the will of the people is irrelevant, right? And I think that's kind of important, because the legislature and the executive are set up for the will of the people. So you have one that's a complete disinterested third party, at least in theory, right?
Be, yeah.
Right. And we all know
and
that
they were
not.
Until about 60 years ago.
Well, they probably weren't then either. Right.
Well, not along the same lines.
Well, even you and I don't know that. At least you may have a better idea because of your background in history, and I don't. But I'm also a big believer in that things are probably not all that different now than they were 50 years ago, 60 years, 500 years ago, whatever. Right? Yeah. We've talked about this in the past with major calamities and catastrophes. The perception right now to a lot of people is that it's much more common than it ever was. And I don't think that's accurate. It's one of those, we just find out about it a lot quicker. You find out about it now.
There's that. There's also,
and then you get bombarded because there's always been a lot of large problems.
Well, I saw this guy on YouTube post this video. He was a college professor, and I wish I could find it, and I wish I could cite it exactly from memory, but it showed the unnatural causes of unnatural death in the 20th century.
Okay.
And of course, it peaked in 1945.
Well, sure. Well, actually, I'm kind of surprised. I would have figured it would have been in the when was influenza?
1919. Yeah, that was a big bump.
That's what I would have thought would have been.
That was a big bump. But the Second World War.
Sure.
It was like 165 million people or something like that.
Yeah, but what was influenza? 1919 was it?
It was in the millions.
Or 20% of the human population at the time.
I don't think it was that high. I think it passed the double-digit mark.
Look it up on the Google.
What the fuck are we going to use the internet for?
Well, good point. I know that it's a crazy percentage, the estimates.
Did it go up in the last 20 years? Maybe they've done some reassessments.
Okay, so continue on while you...
Yeah. We'll fix it in post.
Okay. That should almost be the name of the podcast. We'll fix it in post. Okay. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Deadliest in history. Infected 500 million, about 1/3 of the planet's population. Killed 20 to 50 million victims.
Okay.
20 to 50 million victims.
So what was it?
That, oh my God.
I mean, how many? 500 million, so a third was infected?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a crazy number. That's obviously not how many who died based on that. But regardless, that's not the point, right? The point was there was this huge spike in World War II.
50 million victims.
That's a lot.
675,000 Americans.
Yeah.
That's more than died in the Second World War on the American side.
Yeah.
Right. So, or the British for that matter.
Of course, we weren't invaded.
Well, no, but anyways,
Poles. But your point was
my point was that the scale peaked in 1945,
right,
and there were small bumps since then, the Vietnam War, which actually, because it spread over 7 years,
right,
wasn't actually that dramatic.
I would assume the Vietnam War is there's like no bump from the global perspective.
Well, from the Vietnamese side, it was like 3.5 million Vietnamese of some nationality, and
but
58,000 Americans.
Compared to the purges and stuff.
Oh, I know. Yes. Oh, the purges in the 50s, and that was the only reason it was high in the 50s. Right. Yeah, all of that, and but then like when it hits like after the Khmer Rouge, like after it hits like 1980, it's small anyway. Like once it hits 1947, like it's really small. And then like 80, it like drops off to almost nothing. Yeah. And then after that, it's not even armed conflict.
Oh yeah.
It's just
car crashes.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we indisputably live in the best time to ever be alive.
Yes.
I mean,
but we act like the world is going to end.
Right. And that is very true. So speaking of movie sequels.
Yeah. So we need to. What was the last one we were hung up on? Like The Godfather Part 2.
Godfather Part 2,
right?
And just movie sequels in general.
Right. So and so we were talking about Canby and Ebert, of course. This the nice thing that I liked about Ebert. And you can, by the way, all of his stuff, every single review the man ever wrote is at his website. at RogerEbert.com.
Yeah. Is it The Great Movies? I think is his subsection within there.
I haven't been to the subsection. I just search.
Well, he's got a really good, and I may be mistaken on the terminology. I think it's The Great Movies, but I'm not sure. He's got a collection of probably 270 movies or something that he's calling The Great Movies, which are all 3 or 4 stars, or maybe all 4 stars.
Which he thinks everybody should.
And they are, you look at them and go, yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But go on.
That's okay. So anyway, like Ebert did an amazing thing, which was he wrote an initial review, but if he ever saw the movie later,
he
would revise it, and then he would put it out under a different date.
Right.
So you could read the old one and read the new one.
And that's one of those that I think that was very smart of him, right? Mm-hmm. And something like Pauline Kael, like you're saying, she never redid something.
Right.
You can't reevaluate your own perspective, which you kind of need to do growing up as a human.
Right. My opinion of the Terminator is completely different when I was a kid.
And it's probably going to change 3 more times.
It probably
Maybe
is.
Once. That's hard to say.
Peter Bogdanovich was on the Dick Cavett show like 30 years ago or whatever. When the fuck did Dick Cavett
Everybody was on the Dick Cavett show.
Everybody was on the Dick Cavett.
But what a great show it was.
It was. Yeah, it was a great show. Why isn't it on anymore? Because nobody watched it.
Yeah.
So anyway, he went on, and I think it was after the Last Picture Show hit. And he's on with you can find this on YouTube. He's on with Mel Brooks.
Okay.
Who was pushing Blazing Saddles at the same time. So keep that in your mind, like the same theater, Blazing Saddles and the Last Picture Show are playing.
Right.
That's kind of weird to me.
It's not that weird. I don't think it's that weird, really, because right now is kind of a unusual time in movies, right? In that the only things that are in theaters are the huge, guaranteed blockbusters, right? And that makes sense. I don't particularly like it, but I understand why it is. But if you go back in the late 90s, you had just this huge shotgun approach. They would throw everything up there. The movies of 90, I think it's 99, is that right? 99 was a tremendous year. It's really, people are going to look back at it, and maybe they won't, but I'll look back at it, is one of those great movies where the spread and scope and different things that were presented as popular entertainment is real divergent, right? It's like, oh, that's nothing like this, but it was still out there at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of 90s cinema. Now, having said that, but it's one of these situations, when you're making 200 movies a year, you're bound to make a percentage that I like.
You're going to make 20 that are
sure.
good.
Yeah. And people, and every time I say that, people are like, fuck you, Pulp Fiction came out in 94. And I'm like, I'm not saying Pulp Fiction is bad, it's in the 90s. I'm just saying, like, as a body, as a decade.
It's very broad.
Yeah, like I didn't really jump in until 99.
Yeah.
And the 80s to me just seemed like there was so much shit getting done, and I think it was a weird time because the studio system had failed, the auteurs had taken over, and Heaven's Gate had collapsed the auteurs, and the junk bond companies took over the studios, and it was kind of like a repeat of before of we don't know what's going to happen, so we're just going to throw money at everything. Right. It's kind of like what happened in the early 70s.
Yeah.
As when they were throwing money at Coppola and not De Palma,
just the whole film brat,
Friedkin, and people like. I mean, you look at what Friedkin did with The Exorcist. Like that's in the top 20 highest grossing films of all time. The fucking Exorcist.
Sure.
On boxofficemojo.com.
Which right now is hard to believe, but
right.
But then again, you look at it and.
But it would not have been. Unless
agreed.
that system had happened, and I see that in the 80s.
Yeah, and when the superhero bubble bursts, which it will, it's gonna be. I presume it's gonna be a very similar thing. Mm-hmm. And what's gonna be crazy is Hollywood, just like a lot of other industries, they swing wildly and go all in on everything. It's like, because I'm sure it doesn't make any economic sense to spread it out amongst 50 things. Mm-hmm. It makes sense to make a high dollar bet on a few things, right? But it's from a viewing public, it's not always satisfying.
Yeah, and I understand the pressure from Hollywood. You want to market something that you're familiar with.
Oh yeah,
you've had something before.
Oh yeah,
that totally just makes common sense.
It's total sense.
Yeah, but that does not excuse Jaws for the revenge. This time it's personal.
Nothing excuses that. No. Michael Caine.
That's the greatest line in the film.
Also retired.
One
of the other retiring
Michael Caine, guys. Bridget Fonda,
Gene Hackman,
Sean Connery.
And you were saying Albert Finney.
Albert Finney didn't retire.
Oh,
he just passed away.
Then I misunderstood. Well, that's the ultimate retirement.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, he passed away yesterday.
Okay.
82. Apparently, he was in quote unquote good health. He just caught like the flu or something, and it happened in 3 days.
Yeah,
because you know how if you're not, he was older.
Yeah.
But if you're not taking care of yourself and you're older, and I just said he was in good health, that's contradictory.
But he was probably one of those things who was, in good health for an 82-year-old. But
yeah.
But it's one of those things where if you're 82 and you're smoking cigarettes and you're throwing back some scotch every night, it's like you're living a wonderful life.
And Albert Finney, he fucked a lot of women. He was around, man.
Yeah, I am sure, I would hope at least, that he looks back on his life with very few regrets.
I would imagine so. I remember
you never know.
He was pushing it wasn't a Bourne film. I think it was Skyfall. He had an interview for Skyfall, and somebody brought up
okay, go on.
Yeah, somebody brought up his relationship with Audrey Hepburn because they were together for 6 months in 1968 when they were shooting Two for the Road, and it was a scandal at the time because Hepburn was married to not Jose Ferrer, he divorced. It was William Holden.
Okay.
And had 2 kids by him and everything. And so then it was, and he had done Tom Jones and was a huge star. And Hepburn is not one of these, it was kind of like Ingrid Bergman in the 40s where all of a sudden they didn't know what to do because it was this person from Casablanca they didn't want to label as this homewrecker.
Right.
Right. And not that,
no, Audrey Hepburn, you certainly don't want to besmirch her.
Right. What is that? You have a label. Yes. You have an image. Mm-hmm. How do you square that image with what the celebrity has done on the side?
Yeah, we don't want them to be real people. We want them to be a consistent commodity.
When in the end, it just sort of, so what? Audrey Hepburn and Albert Finney had a thing. So what? In the grand scheme of things, what does that matter? We don't get into it.
It does though. I know people that won't go see a George Clooney movie. What? Because of his political statements in the past.
Why? Because he's left?
Well, yeah. And I don't necessarily agree with it because I'm certainly not perfect, right? I can't separate an artist from I can't separate the art from the artist all the time, right? But it is one of those things where that's not uncommon, and it actually makes a certain degree of sense because the reason a lot of these people are hugely popular is because it's not because they're beautiful or they're good at their craft. It's because they're those things plus the consumer can say, oh, I kind of relate to this human for whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't...
you probably don't...
I see what you're saying, and
I mean, there's some truth.
There is. I don't know. I don't want it to turn into those, some of my best friends are Democrats type of conversation,
well, yeah.
but
none of my friends are Democrats.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Democrats. I don't have a problem with. I don't really consider myself a Republican anymore.
No, I understand
the past
well, who
2
does?
years,
Who can?
right?
Who's reasonable nowadays?
Right. Unless I'm part of that 10% who's disaffected and is upset. But
they're probably not Republicans. They're something different.
Right.
Whatever that is.
Right.
But whatever.
Yeah, and I don't hold it against. To me, it's the intent.
Well,
right, George Clooney and his politics, and he could be an X. It could be any Hollywood person on the left or the right, for that matter. Clint Eastwood. What is the intent of their politics? To make the world a better place? Well, then I'm in. I'm not going to boycott your movie because you want to make the world a better place.
No, yeah, I mean, even if I don't necessarily agree with your way of getting there, right? Your ultimate objective, okay, that aligns with mine. But it's also one of those things where the biggest stars, now I think about it, they're likable people. Mm-hmm. Right. Harrison Ford is as far as I can tell, a jerk.
Oh yeah, he's got that reputation. Yeah.
But you watch him on the film, it's like, oh, man, that guy he's freaking cool.
Yeah.
Right, and he doesn't do anything that, from a public perspective, really fucks up his public image.
Right.
But if you went out there and did something just totally outside. Whatever.
Well, yeah, like Justin Bieber does, like punching fans and bullshit like that.
I may love his music. I don't. But if I did, it's like, yeah, that guy's an a-hole.
Yeah. Well, the same, Axl Rose.
A-hole.
A total ass.
Of course, I do like his music. Okay.
And
so I rethink my perspective.
Wore a shirt back on the GNR Lies tour that had a can of aerosol spray and it said AIDS kills fags dead on the t-shirt. And even then, what a year was that? 90, 91 or something. I was not the most aware person in the world and probably didn't have any friends who were gay, but I just thought that is so fucking wrong.
It's like, that's pretty fucked up.
That is over the edge wrong.
Right.
And yet, I still bought the album.
You still bought GNR Lies.
Because it's a bitchin' album.
It's actually a pretty good album.
Yeah.
It really is. I don't know.
It's a decent follow-up to Appetite for Destruction, which is still my favorite GNR album.
Yeah.
I'm not the Use Your Illusion
No, I mean, I think
crowd.
Use Your Illusion, if it was one record, would definitely be the best GNR record.
If
it was a single 14-track album, it would be the best, but it's not.
Like they say that the White Album should have been.
That's what I've heard. You might be, a Beatlemaniac, potentially. Kind of like Nick Cage and The Rock.
I am a total Beatlemaniac. I mean, that's my favorite scene in The Rock. It's when Nick Cage holds up that vinyl.
To you, it's totally reasonable. The rest of us were like, oh, whack job.
Well, the entire time, I remember watching that in the theater, and he said, these sound better. And I'm thinking, he fucking plays that thing? I don't want... Nobody should be playing an original with the Beatles from 1964. No.
What?
Nobody should be playing it.
No, you're wrong.
It's a piece of art. Belongs in the museum.
No.
I'm going to pull the Indiana.
You're wrong. If you own it, right, that's the objective of owning it. It's like the people who buy the perfect wine.
Then he should have
two. The objective is to drink it. That's fine. If you can afford two, right, but if you can only afford one, enjoy life. Unless you're, Shirley MacLaine and you're going to come back, rewind multiple times on this planet, you're only here once. You might as well listen to it and enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's why you got it.
See, that's another thing. The conflict of the stars, or whatever we call the cosmos. I can't stand Shirley MacLaine.
No.
But I'm a huge believer in reincarnation.
Oh, you are?
Yes.
That's one of those things I don't think we've ever talked about.
Yeah.
Why are you a big believer in reincarnation?
I don't know. It just makes sense to me.
It just works for you?
It just works for me. I'm a non-practicing Hindu. Just like I was when I grew up, I was a non-practicing Catholic.
Right.
I just feel better about it.
Yeah, no,
you know,
that's
I don't
fine.
go to temple. I don't go to temple, and
Right.
I will never say that I am down with everything that the Hindus do or think or feel or pray about or whatever. But it was just like when I was raised Catholic. I didn't know anything about Catholicism, but I went on Sunday, and could I do or think or feel everything that Catholics do? No,
Right.
no.
I mean, what, in your perspective, is the thing about reincarnation that you find attractive? I'm just curious.
Oh no, it's definitely the idea that when you're dead, it's not over, but it's not an afterlife.
Well,
So to me, like an afterlife is a package to sell people.
well, so is reincarnation.
It is, but it's just, man, I dig it. I think that makes sense. I think it explains a lot about my personality and things in my life were, and not because I'm just a history nut.
Okay,
But
so the number of organic beings on the planet, you know, it's
increasing exponentially.
Yeah, it's not a net zero, right? I mean, yeah, we're unfortunately losing several species but I mean, it's one of those that overall the vast number. So from the reincarnation perspective, is it one of those things where you pass away and you have a choice to go back and rewind it?
Well, no, that would be Buddhism.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. So if you in Buddhism,
so are the new beings new souls?
That's a good question. I mean, a soul to me is just energy. Okay. I mean, we have energy that makes us move, just like there's energy that makes this laptop happen or grass to grow.
Right.
A car to drive. And the energy moves from one place to another. It's just transfers.
Okay.
So to me, it's just, you know, if a body is born, how do you create energy, or did it transfer from somewhere else?
Right.
Do you create it, or can you destroy energy?
According to physics, no.
According to physics, no. But
as far as we know, that's right.
Right, yeah, and you can't create energy. You basically transfer it from a previous source. Coal has potential energy in it, which you release, and blah, blah, blah. And same with gasoline, same with solar power, same with,
nuclear energy, you
right.
name it.
And I don't want to get into a prime mover conversation in Aristotle and all that. But
no, I'm just, it's not one of those things where I disagree. I'm not.
Yeah.
But it's like, for me, reincarnation is one of those things where I wouldn't want to necessarily redo something without the previous experience being available, right?
Yeah.
So if there are more individuals that conceptually have souls, for lack of a better term, on my end, it's like, why? Okay.
Why are they increasing?
Well, not necessarily why are they increasing, but I don't understand necessarily the appeal, because if it's a greater number, presumably there's a choice, right? It's like there's some kind of variability.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a choice. I don't think the cosmos works that way.
Okay, so it's an endless loop.
Yeah.
And then individuals, the only way that would work based on the conversation in my brain right now is that, okay, individuals split, right? What once was 1 is now 2 or 3 or 17.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case either.
Okay, then
I think that my soul in the next life is going to be the same soul. It's just going to lose a lot of texture.
Lose or gain? I would think the gaining
it's going to lose some texture. For instance, it's not going to carry over the memories.
Okay.
It might have like a shadow of what it might have been.
Which would conceptually influence your decision making in the next go round.
Right. Right. And the karma is wrapped up into that.
Gotcha.
Right. And I do believe that instant karma is a real thing. I just don't think that it's a cosmos thing. Like instant karma, just, if you drive like a dick, you're going to get in an accident.
Yeah, it's just
that, that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that karma over lifetimes work. Like if I'm a good person now, not only do I get the rewards in this life, I will get the rewards in the next one. But at the same time, that doesn't, the whole Job thing, that plays in too. You can treat someone like shit their whole life, and they can be a good person, and then they have a bad life.
Yeah.
That happened for millennia to most of the people.
Yeah.
What did Hobbes say? Right? Hobbes said that life for 99 out of 100 people was nasty, brutish, and short.
Yeah.
Unless you were born in a mansion, you suck.
Which, yeah, It's true. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Even though things are better now, instead of one, it's 1.01 people.
Right.
So
So anyway, getting back to
question.
Yes.
All right. So that explains it actually. Why you like the Bond movies so much? Then
It explains why I like Bond movies.
Yeah,
because it's the reincarnation of Bond.
So what do you think? I mean, if you put a percentage on it, how many Bond movies are there? 21? 22?
24. I think they're on 25 now. Yeah,
Okay.
it's 20. Dr. No from Russia with
How
Love.
many of them are good?
10 years ago, I would have said all of them.
Right.
Now, I would say...
All of them minus the ones over the past 10 years?
No.
I'm just curious.
Now, I would say half of them are spectacular.
Okay.
And then I would say the other half are mediocre.
Mediocre to terrible.
Mediocre to... Well, I'm trying to think of a... See, I'm a Bond fan.
I know. That's what
so
I'm asking.
I don't think that there's a terrible Bond.
Diamonds Are Forever is pretty terrible.
I don't know, because there are things in Diamonds Are Forever that make me want to watch it again.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Oh, Moonraker's pretty fucking bad.
Pretty
yeah, that's okay. And so when you apply that, is there anything in Moonraker that makes me want to watch it again? That's probably no.
It's like, okay, so that's the one.
That's the one.
Definitively that sucks. Okay.
Yeah, and I get caught up in part of it is the childhood. John Glenn directed like 5 of those.
Okay.
And 3 of them were Roger Moore movies, and 2 of them were Dalton movies. And
the first Dalton movie was pretty bad too.
Oh, I like The Living Daylights.
Okay.
I think that's a great Cold War.
Or is it? Which one? Okay, how many did he do? 2 or 3?
He did 2.
All right, so there was Living Daylights
and License to Kill.
Okay, License to Kill I remember liking quite a bit.
Yeah,
because it was kind of ugly and rough.
But my problem is that they were shot just like John Glenn shot those, just like the Moore ones.
Yeah,
just like the last 3 Moores. And so it's almost like a parody. Like when you see things in the Dalton films, it's almost like it's a parody of the Moore films.
Right.
And they're trying to make the character more serious.
Yeah.
Dalton was, and it doesn't work because they're using the same filmic techniques. Raise the music, zoom in on the pen.
Then it goes.
Audience comes to the conclusion, jump cut.
Right.
It fucking happens in like 10 times in every John Glenn Bond film. And it really ruins the Daltons, I think.
Okay. I believe you.
And the other one is like, they should have brought Dalton in like after Moonraker.
Probably right before, but yes.
Yeah, and have him done Octopussy and...
Oh, that's terrible too. That one's terrible too. That one's god awful. That one's worse.
No, I don't. But I will watch Octopussy again because I love the egg. I love the clown outfits. I love him taking the egg to the embassy in the beginning.
Okay.
And the credit sequences are shit. I'll give you that. And I do get conflicted, like Roger Moore in the finale of that movie is running around in a clown outfit with makeup on.
Exactly.
And he's supposed to mirror 006, who gets killed in the beginning, or 008, or whoever gets killed in the beginning of the film. And you're like, oh, is the same thing going to happen to him?
Of course
not. It doesn't. But I know a lot of people are like, James Bond is wearing a clown outfit. I hate this movie.
Yeah, it kind of immediately makes it just terrible.
Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, it's got like the villain from Beverly Hills Cop, Victor Maitland.
Okay.
He's in Octopussy.
I believe it. It's been so long.
Yeah.
I just remember walking to that movie just going, oh, that was trash.
Yeah.
That was trash.
There's also like
See, because I'm pretty convinced that, and this isn't right? This is just my snap judgment based on having not seen them in quite a while. There's like 4 good ones. And I think the rest are trash.
Goldfinger. Dr. No.
From Russia with Love. For Eyes Only.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
Amora made it.
Yeah. That one I think is actually a refreshing change, right? And I really like the poster. And and
Carolyn Bouquet.
And then I think, what was it, the first Daniel Craig one?
Casino Royale.
I think maybe.
You're not a Craig fan.
Not particularly. Well, I don't dislike him. I just haven't been that satisfied with the movies.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't see the last one. I admit to that. The one before, I remember sitting in the theater going, it just didn't do it for me.
Oh, Spectre?
Yeah. And
No, Spectre was the last one. The one before that was Skyfall.
Okay. That one I liked.
With Javier
Not really
Bardem.
very much. Not very much. And then I did like the, Straw Dogs ending. But... yeah, and was it Quantum of Solace was the second one?
Shit, I didn't even think about that.
And I remember not enjoying that.
That was a fucking Straw Dogs ending.
Yeah. It is. Oh, and it is totally a remake of Straw Dogs.
I did not even think about that.
Oh, really?
They're after his girl.
Yeah, it's
oh my God.
all of a sudden you have to recalibrate. Like, oh no!
Oh, I gotta watch it again.
Yeah.
Why did I not think about that?
I don't know. I'm kind of surprised you didn't.
So obvious.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised you didn't.
So this goes back to...
there was another Connery one I liked a lot, so maybe it's 5.
Yeah.
Which is it? There's Goldfinger from Rush with Love, and what's the other one? Dr. No.
Dr. No, from Rush with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball. And
Thunderball
and
I like. Thunderball is terrible, but I like it. It's terrible. Yeah. No. What's the one that I like that's terrible? The space one. You Only Live Twice. That's fucking god awful, but I like it.
Yeah, and I think that won an Oscar for set design. Like
that doesn't mean it's good.
From Ken Adam, the legendary Ken Adam. And Ken Adam, he designed like the room in the submarine room in the Spy Who Loved Me, when all 3 submarines are in a huge tanker, and that's the 007 soundstage where they've shot a lot of Star Wars there actually. Right. Ken Adam, I learned, was he was a German Jew who immigrated to Britain in between the outbreak of the war and the invasion of France. So when he got there, he joined the RAF, and they trained him as a fighter pilot, and he fought the Luftwaffe during the Second World War, and he was still considered a German citizen.
Okay.
Even though he'd been disavowed by Nazi Germany, they would not have recognized him as a British citizen if he had been caught in combat. He would have been immediately shot wherever he was as a Jew.
Right.
They would not even have bothered with it. And yet he survived the war, and when he got out, he studied art and design and got into... I think he was working with Powell and Pressburger in the very beginning of his career in the 50s, when they had all those color films. And I don't know if he worked on the Red Shoes or not, but
might have.
But by the 1960s, I mean, I think he got in somehow on Eon Productions, and he was involved in Thunderball, and then You Only Live Twice is like the game, like he designed the rocket crater, right? And just from then, and every once in a while I'll see his credit on he passed away now. I think it was like 92 or something, like 10 years ago. But every once in a while I'll see his name on a different movie, and I'm like, oh my God, Ken Adam did this.
Like that guy's everywhere.
Yeah, and he trained Peter Lamont and Neil Lamont, who are also, they did a lot of other Bond films after Ken Adam. And then now, if I looked at the credit for those guys, you'd be, oh yeah, I know that production design on that movie. That's really good. Those guys are pretty amazing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Lamonts.
Lamont.
Yeah, Lamont. Yeah, but they're English. They're not.
I'm going to say it like
français. Anyway, so are you still good?
I'm still good.
Okay.
I'm just shifting in my seat.
Yeah, so should we go all the way back to the sequels in The Godfather Part 2?
Oh, okay.
So what's your favorite sequel then? Godfather Part 2?
No, I don't think that's my favorite. That's the one I kind of look at as my immediate reaction is the best. I think Aliens is probably my favorite.
Oh, God, great choice.
Right?
Great choice.
From the best standpoint, I have a hard time coming past Godfather 2 because I do think that in many regards it surpasses the original. And Aliens, I don't think it necessarily surpasses it, but it's one of those things where it's a very effective sequel because it totally shifts the perspective. It doesn't... We're not making another horror movie, we're making an action movie.
Right.
Right? Where that's oftentimes a really good choice from an entertainment perspective. And that does happen, although I'm kind of blanking on... Well,
Cars
the
2.
Fast and the Furious.
Cars 2.
Cars 2. I can't believe we're coming up with these things, but like Fast and the Furious, they're not good movies, right? well, they've got their own base level of entertainment. But there was the Fast and Furious, and they're all, street racing movies. And then there was the one in Brazil, which may have been 5, 7, 94, or 13. I can't remember. But I remember walking out of there going, God, that was so much more entertaining than I thought. Because they shifted the perspective. They went from car racing to we're international bank robber crime stoppers, which is dumb. But it was really entertaining, right? They didn't remake it.
Yeah. I mean, I went to go see the first one. What year was that? Like 2000, 2001 or something?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
And I just remember just like, it's fucking Point Break with cars.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And,
and I like Point Break.
And Bill Simmons does a great rewatchables on the Fast and Furious. I think it was out like last month or something. My son and I watched. My son is Fast and the Furious to the nth.
Okay.
He fucking loves all of them. And thinks they're the complete shit. And
that's terrible.
And he forced me to rewatch them all just so we could go out and see Fate of the Furious,
right?
Which we saw at the big Star Cinema. That was the
most recent one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And my opinion on them began to change, because I just saw them as like you say, unbelievably highly entertaining.
Right.
And there were a couple of moments where I was truly captivated, like when Vin Diesel and Paul Walker are, I don't remember which one it was, but
number 17 or 45.
They're on a car, they're going off the cliff of a canyon, and Paul Walker gets up on the back of the trunk with his Vans.
That may have been the same one.
And they sail off, and Vin Diesel's holding onto the rim of the convertible window. That was fucking amazing, man.
So dumb, but so good.
It was great.
But,
and so I think the definition, I think we have to argue about what is the definition of a bad movie.
Right.
Because if you're having that experience in a theater, it's not bad.
Yeah, I think if you enjoy something that much, by definition, it can't be bad.
Yeah.
Right. You can say it's not, important.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's bad.
It doesn't have to be
because they're not. Because I think I've seen all of those movies in the theater. Maybe not, but some percentage. And the only time I think the only things that are really bad are when they're boring. Right? And those movies are oftentimes not boring.
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff going on, and they are definitely...
Godfather Part 3.
I haven't seen that since it came out. And I saw it in the theater. I saw it at the Hollywood Man's Chinese, and I haven't seen it since. So what's that, almost 30 years? 25?
88, 89,
yeah. So I need to see it again, but I don't recall it being very good.
That's just...
Because I know I've never wanted to go back and rewatch it.
It's one of those missed opportunities. I try not to get emotional about it. I get emotional about film.
Nuh-uh.
But yeah, I do. I'm passionate about it. But to think that all of those problems could have been solved by Winona Ryder.
Well, and Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
yeah.
I think if you had Duvall in there,
huge fuck up.
Sofia Coppola thing would have been
up.
accepted. Yeah, if Winona Ryder was there and no Robert Duvall, he's like, well, okay, at least she's good. Sofia Coppola, talented filmmaker. That was a terrible performance.
Yeah. She's an amazing director. She's
not her thing.
Not a particularly good actress.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just
unless you're trying to carry the third movie of possibly the most important American, and then it's a problem.
Well, you look at Robert Evans. He knew that he was not a very good actor, and he really dug the producing thing. And look what he did with it. My God, Chinatown alone, Chinatown justifies his existence.
Yeah, how many movies was he producer on? I mean, not how many, but what are the highlights? Because it was
Oh, Robert Evans.
Yeah, because
that'll fucking shock you. Let me pull it up.
Bonnie and Clyde. I don't want to say in case I'm wrong. But I never saw The Kid Stays in the Picture. I never read it.
That was pretty good. Oh.
I knew that Ally McGraw was his gal, but then Steve McQueen fucked it up.
Right. Oh, that's a bad picture of him, too.
And he was a hairdresser. Okay, so you have Chinatown.
Well, yeah, The Godfather, Chinatown, Godfather Part 2, Marathon Man, Black Sunday. Okay, well, there's Players, Urban Cowboy, Popeye, The Cotton Club, The Two Jakes, which I dearly love.
Never seen.
Sliver, which I hate. Jade,
hate again. The Phantom, which I remember liking it at the time, but I don't even remember it now. The Saint, my wife loves The Saint. The Out-of-Towners and How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
It's actually not a...
It's not nearly as good as I thought.
Well, I mean, the highs are as high as you get.
Yes.
Right.
Oh my God! Like in 4 in a row: Godfather, Chinatown, Godfather Part 2, Marathon Man.
Right.
I mean,
there you go.
I mean, yeah.
And the other ones, there's flaws to be nice.
Yeah.
But the Phantom. I like Billy Zane, but he's a pretty cool dude, but not good.
God, I remember. I'm constantly referencing on my podcast, like when I was in film school. I was never in film school.
Right.
I didn't go to film school. I took film courses in a graduate program.
Okay.
I remember we were watching a movie with Tilda Swinton when she was like 20. It was called, I think it was called Orlando.
Yeah, that's one where she
switches
like a
gender.
Questionable gender. Yeah, there's something. I don't think I've ever seen it, but I know of it.
Yeah, she starts as a male.
Right.
Which, I mean, to be honest, it's Tilda Swinton when she's 20. She does not look like a male.
No.
And she's a very beautiful woman. And then halfway through it, she turns into a woman in this very well filmed full frontal nudity scene, which is kind of shocking to watch in college with like 50 people.
Right.
No problem in a theater with 300, but in a setting like that is a bit different.
Right. If you're surrounded by a bunch of people that you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then she's going, so Billy Zane pops up as this muscular lover boy. And I could not, I got off the train at that point.
Right. I could see where that would happen.
And it may have been because of the Phantom.
It may have been. Or Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight. One of the two. I love that movie. And it's unwatchable, but I really enjoy that.
Well, I mean, to me, like Orlando is unwatchable. I have no interest in
ever seeing it again.
No, I mean, Tilda Swinton is nude in it, and I'm not interested in watching that movie. That should say something about the story, about the structure, about the narrative, about
Right.
But that's just me. Somebody else,
or your feelings on, Billy Zane,
or my feelings on Billy Zane, which are much stronger than my feelings on Tilda Swinton.
Apparently, although you're wrong.
I mean, I don't care to like. He's in Titanic, isn't he?
He is.
I don't. That might be one of the reasons why I don't care for Titanic.
Maybe why you don't like Zoolander, which.
Oh my God, man! Had to fucking bring that up,
dude. You're wrong.
Oh,
you're wrong. You just are.
Zoolander. You talk about a bad movie.
That's not it.
No,
Zoolander 2 is.
Oh, I never saw Zoolander 2.
Well, that one you're not missing much. Zoolander 1, amazing. It's a darn shame.
So you're saying that in your film collection?
I don't actually own it on DVD.
Okay.
I would, but
if you had a shelf with all of your
Zoolander would be there.
Right next to Z by Costa Gavras?
Yeah. Zoolander is probably one of my top 10 favorite comedies. I'm not going to sit there and say it's the best, but it might be. But that one brings joy to my heart, and I'm kind of surprised you just despise it. What is this,
I am at a
loss.
I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, we're going to have to watch it again.
No.
Yeah, you're missing out.
I fucking refuse
to
watch Zoolander again. Okay, so back into sequels.
Yes.
Because we are in, we all know, we talked about the marketability of them, and the sequels are X and the sequels are Y. The Marvel Universe is not necessarily sequels. They're all interconnected.
Right.
Some of them are direct.
Some of them
and
not
some
so
of
much.
them are, right. And even like the Captain America movies, I mean, Captain America 1, 2, and 3 are not sequels.
Not in the traditional sense, that's for sure.
Right. And even like Thor and then the Dark World and then Ragnarok, they're not traditionally descended from one another either. But Marvel seems to be repeating what a lot of film companies did, say, in the 30s and 40s, where they put out a lot of interconnected movies particularly Warner Brothers.
Right.
Interconnected movies with sometimes the same character and plot points that were very successful, but a lot of people seem to be kind of lost on it. Like, and what I mean by that is, like, Peter Bogdanovich did an interview a couple of years ago, and I think it was with the Empire podcast, and he basically said, like, I just don't get it. Like, people like them, but I'm not one of them. Like, I don't understand why people like the MCU.
I don't know why people. I don't understand. I understand where if you don't like it, but I don't know how you could say you don't understand why people do. Right? Because I mean, it's essentially.
To him, it was just
it's the 1930 serialized, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's probably not 100% accurate, but it is one of those things where, from a broadly entertaining standpoint, it makes sense. I don't really like a lot of pop music that I hear, but I understand why people do like it.
Well, I mean, that's a separate conversation. Like, pop music the past 20 years is shit. It is bad.
For the most part, I agree with you. It's terrible, but I understand why people like it. I understand why people, whoever those people are, why they would like, Justin Bieber. I don't, but I understand why people would, right? It's catchy. It's got a very shallow but, good groove. I mean, it's not funky from a James Brown Parliament Funkadelic perspective, but, whatever. I can see why in pop culture it would be... Why is McDonald's popular? I know why. It's...
Because it tastes good.
Well, good or not, it's consistent.
Oh, yeah,
you know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's cup of tea. Some people would say it was the worst food they've ever eaten. I understand that. But also, I can understand why people would go there once, twice, 3 times a week, whatever. I know what I'm getting. I like it. And, yeah, every time, it's good. So, like I said, it may not be my thing. The Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of is. But I can understand why Peter Bogdanovich wouldn't like it. But I don't know why you could say, I don't get why people understand it or why they like it. That doesn't make any sense to me. You're just not trying.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry movies. Exceptionally popular.
Yeah.
Not my thing.
I'm not a fan of them, but man,
I get it.
Yeah. Have you seen, I hate to bring them up so often, but have you seen Cop Out?
No, I've not seen that one. I know what it is, but I've not seen it.
With
Tracy Morgan,
and Bruce Willis. Kevin Smith directed it. Okay, so I got to tell you, like, I heard about it. I heard about the Great Tragedy. I decided to go ahead and rent it. I watched it. I was not a fan.
It's got to be terrible.
I was just not a fan.
Right.
And, of course, he talks incessantly about, Smith does, about the problems making the film and how it was a dream that was crushed. Like, he actually saw himself during production, like, I could be that guy.
Right.
I could be that Hollywood director who takes a script and turns it into gold.
Sure.
And it just didn't happen. I watched it a second time 5 years later. And my perspective on it changed. Like, I can see how if you like Tracy Morgan, that is your fucking movie.
I don't doubt it.
That is...
Did you get anybody pregnant? Sorry.
I saw something I didn't see the first time, which was Tracy Morgan's star power.
Sure.
His performance power. And it actually reminded the last time it reminded me a lot of Not to Stay in the Same Color, but Eddie Murphy. It was just natural on screen.
Right.
Last time I saw it was like Kevin Hart, again, Not to Stay in Color, but Kevin Hart was in the movie with Bryan Cranston recently.
Yeah, I didn't see it. I know what you speak of.
Yeah, the good side.
No.
And he just complete natural.
Tracy Morgan to me he's the same dude as Will Ferrell.
Yes.
And I like Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
I understand why people don't.
Yeah.
But there's a high percentage of the stuff I like. A high percentage of the stuff that Tracy Morgan does I like. It's the same guy. But I can see where you wouldn't like it at all, and it's unwatchable for sure.
Yeah.
Except for Will Ferrell's part in Zoolander, which is objectively phenomenal.
Fucking A.
We're gonna have to watch it. I mean, you're just wrong.
Is it on Vudu?
I'm sure it is.
It can't be.
Why would it not be? Everything is.
It's shit.
No, you're wrong. You've watched it with the wrong people.
Oh, God.
It's probably not in your movies, though.
No, it's not. I'm going to have to search for it. Split is already on Unbreakable. Now that's... Well, that sequel is out.
Right.
Glass, I saw it with Luke.
Yeah, and you were saying not all that phenomenal.
No. Particularly the ending was very lackluster.
Ah, there it is.
Oh, shit, it is here. You can own it for $13.99.
Oh, I wouldn't pay $13.99 for it.
I can't believe that you don't have Vudu, man.
I just don't.
I got to tell you, I love it. So here's my...
Do they have free stuff, or is it all purchased?
They do have free stuff. So we watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 for free.
Okay.
And, you watch an ad every 45 minutes or something.
Oh, okay.
It's perfect. It's just like TV. You go out and take a leak, grab
like
a
TV.
beer, and come back. And no, I mean, that was... And so these... I've got... Come on. Here it is. I've got 85 titles. And most of these are DVDs that I purchase, and it comes with a code, and I just enter the code, and I get the film.
Okay.
And then I'm constantly checking for deals.
Okay.
Right. So if you go to movies here, it'll have deals, and it'll have anthologies. Sale. See, here's the proposal. If you want this piece of shit with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds, it's $9.99. Once Upon a Deadpool is on here, $14.96.
I never saw that.
Yeah, neither did I. But oh my God, did you see First Man?
I did not.
Oh, brilliant movie.
I don't doubt it.
Brilliant movie.
I didn't see it.
And I know that we live in Space City. We're more attuned to.
Sure. I probably.
Right.
I think I wanted. I know I wanted to see it, but I just don't get out that.
I was really shocked. I was not expecting it to.
I've never seen a Damien Chazelle movie, although I've been interested in every single one of his.
This was another good one. Luke and I went to go see Peppermint in the theater.
Did you see
That was Psycho. That was like if Punisher was a chick.
Right. Did you see?
It was unreal.
Upgrade?
No, I heard it was good.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, everybody's saying that.
It's like, yeah, watch that.
Yeah, I love Peppermint. I
assume,
like Jennifer Garner.
I assume everybody's turned off the podcast at this point.
Well, that's why there's a pause button, my friend.
Oh, good.
Okay, so here, like the Fast and the Furious bundle, own them all for $37.99.
$40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not familiar with the. I wanted to see that.
What, El Royale?
Yeah, I wanted to see that.
Yeah, Luke and I saw that. So that's one of those movies. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but did you see The Ballad of Buster Scruggs?
No, I haven't seen that. That's on the Netflix, right?
But you saw the Coen brothers, yeah. So you saw No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so a lot like the Coen brothers, like at the end of No Country for Old Men, you knew there was a point.
Yes.
You knew they were trying to tell you something. And The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is a series of really, really dark stories. Mm-hmm. That have a point they're trying to make, and they get darker as they go.
Oh, nice.
And I had a sense when I was watching Bad Times at El Royale. I am missing the point.
It's there, but I don't get it.
It is there, and I'm not saying that it's bad on the filmmaker's point that I missed it. I just, as a viewer, I didn't get, and that's not on the filmmakers. That's
might be
it. I don't know, but I really felt like searching while I was in the theater. I put my phone away and I don't touch my phone while I'm in a theater.
Right.
And I chastise and whip people and report them when I see somebody do that. And Luke is not allowed to have his phone out when we're in a theater. That's just fucking insane.
That's just stepping over that bound.
Right. And I know you went like 10 years without being able to finish a movie in a theater because of your work situation.
That was the job.
Yeah.
It was very annoying, but yes.
Yeah, but I felt like whipping it out and going, what does Bad Times at El Royale mean? Google.
I'm sure I'll see it, but haven't seen it. Oh, Happy Death Day. That's more entertaining than it should be.
I want to see Old Man and a Gun. I'm a Robert Redford fan. I'm still
I could take him or leave.
Again, like, you know, we were talking about separating the personal from the political, and
Right.
I can do that very easily. I don't harbor any ill will towards anyone who thinks that we can create a better society or a better country or a better world through our individual actions or the way that we vote. What I will, like you were saying, when it comes to personal actions,
Right.
I think those are much more damning. But I try to be as non-judgmental as I possibly can and not throw a brick or point a finger, because that could be just as easily pointed my way.
Sure.
So I'm not interested in having that golden rule applied to me, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, so
Probably at my ass.
so bringing that back to the
Sequels?
the sequels super to the Super 70.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite political film?
Favorite political film. How are we defining political?
Well, I mentioned Z before,
Right.
which I love.
And I've never seen, so I don't have an opinion.
Yeah, or the Battle of Algiers, which my cousin that was in the military told me that it was required watching in West Point
Which makes sense.
when he was there.
So from political, we mean truly political.
Truly. Now, and it's kind of strange because I'm a right of center guy.
Sure.
I am not any means an extremist, and I
No. Well, at least
fucking
at least you don't
hate
think you are.
Trump. But you know, I love Z. I
Right.
love the Battle of Algiers, and
I think
I get the point. You know,
I think my favorite political movie, at least as it sits right this second, is Natural Born Killers.
as that's a political movie.
Yeah,
NBK, really?
I think it is.
How is? Well, I saw that more of a social
Is there a difference?
phenomenon. I think there's a difference.
Okay.
Well, I mean, for instance, like Z is about a socialist politician who gets
I'm not
killed
talking
for his political beliefs, and the Battle of Algiers is about the struggle for Algerian independence against the French right. And
Right, and I don't know if I don't know if political inherently means governmental, right?
no, there's a difference between a government thriller and a
Right.
political thriller.
And To Kill a Mockingbird, is that a political story? Yes and no?
No, but it took me a while to get to that conclusion.
Yeah, I don't know if it is or not. I'm asking a serious
Or
question.
The Lost Honor of Katharina Blum
Mm-hmm.
by Von Trotta. I don't know if you've seen
Not seen it.
that. You know, that's about a woman who falls in love with a terrorist,
Mm-hmm.
and she's very apolitical. It takes place in West Germany.
Right.
You know, in 1970 something. This is when terrorism was big in West Germany.
When it was all the rage.
When it was all the rage, when the RAF was going around, or the Bader-Meinhof gang,
Right.
and they were. It's about how she falls in love with the terrorist in the beginning of the film. She's a very apolitical person. He's a very political person.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the film, she becomes political, but not because of the terrorist. It's because the way the state treats her trying to get to him,
Right.
which is to throw every fucking rights book out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because you know this man, you forfeited all of
so
your
it's
human rights.
It's how a government turns an individual against itself.
Yes.
But
So that to me is a political film. October is a political film
October.
by Sergei Eisenstein.
Yeah, not seen it.
Yeah.
3 Days of the Condor.
See that.
It's a
So people
political
think that it's a
thriller.
political thriller, but that to me is like a
JFK, is that a political...
JFK is a political. Yes.
It's a political thriller.
The
Is it a political
Parallax
movie, though?
View. Oh my God! Have you seen the Parallax View?
I don't think I have. But the thing about JFK, is it a political movie or is it a political thriller? Because it's not really a political movie, right?
No, it's a political thriller. Yeah,
But it's not a
It's not a
political
political
movie.
Not a political movie. No, and it's also loaded with a lot of bullshit.
It is, but I mean, just from the story perspective, right? He isn't necessarily championing any sort of ideology that I can remember.
In that film, no, he seems to be more. In the final scene with Costner, he seems to be touting truth, his
Right.
version of truth,
It's
anti-fascism.
Mhm.
Because I mean, he literally says he describes the U.S. government as fascist
Right.
in the speech, and what could have been America if this had not happened. Those are the three things I remember from his
Right.
closing argument.
And it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't honestly know.
I own it, and I haven't. I don't think I watched it when I bought it.
Right.
It's
But it's one of those that one day I'll come back and revisit it. So I'm trying to think of...
Well, that's another thing. I love Oliver Stone. Like, I think he's a fantastic filmmaker. I don't believe in his bullshit, but I think
he's very talented.
Yeah.
He's very talented.
Yeah, and I think Salvador, like he shot, I don't remember if he shot Salvador, if he wrote the script. He wrote the screenplay for Scarface.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a political movie.
Yes, that is...
Not a thriller.
It is yes and no, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's really hard for me to... I'm having a hard time grasping what a political thriller is. Usually, in my mind, a political movie, rather, is one that's championing an ideology, right? That's usually the way I think.
Right. Oh, okay.
And an ideology is a perspective that affects a lot of people.
Well, I see what you're saying, but I mean, I don't... Triumph of the Will, as great as it is.
It's a propaganda piece.
It's right. It's a political movie.
It is.
But that's not really what and believe it or not, as anti-fascist as I am,
You like their fashion.
I like Triumph of the Will.
Right. Well, it doesn't mean it's...
In the correct context.
Yeah,
Riefenstahl was a very effective filmmaker.
Sure. So what are some political movies?
Well, I remember when I was in college and I was with the movie club, and I was not I was not the head of the club. I was just an officer, and I got outvoted, and we watched Bowling for Columbine.
That's definitely a political movie.
That's the biggest piece of shit I have ever seen called a documentary about anything.
Right, but I mean that's definitely a political movie.
Yes.
It was championing an ideology.
Right. It was, yeah. But at the same time, this is the messed up world that we live in, or the messed up people we are. I love Roger and Me.
Sure.
I think it's a great film.
It's one of those things, yeah. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you like this, you like that, you don't like this, you don't like that, you don't agree. I mean, we're not supposed to agree with everything or disagree with everything.
No.
Right? I don't particularly think that I'd want to hang out with Spike Lee on a day-to-day basis, but there's a lot of movies of his I like quite a bit.
Yeah, he's
And
great.
there's some that I don't like at all, right?
He's awesome.
I mean, I think that Do the Right Thing is a very political movie, and I do enjoy the movie quite
good.
a bit.
That's a good film.
Right, and it's,
I didn't care for Clockers.
I thought Clockers was okay, but it's also one of those things where, some of those things I don't necessarily think that they represent my personal perspective, but doesn't mean I inherently dismiss them as ridiculous, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I'm trying to think of, going back to your original question.
Yeah.
Right? What's my favorite political movie? And if I'm defining it as trying to forward an idea or an ideology that you want the people to consider their perspective on, which is kind of the way I think I define political at this particular moment, at this particular time, in this particular seat. I mean, for whatever reason, Natural Born Killers is what popped in my head. Probably because I was talking about Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of those movies, and I haven't seen it in quite a long time. But it's one of those that I think I'd probably be pretty interested in watching now and saying, I wonder what I think of it now, right? So I don't have an easy answer, and I suck. But what are you gonna do? You can kick me off.
Yeah.
What's your favorite political movie?
Fuck, I don't know.
Figured you'd have an answer.
Let me look at my Criterion collection real quick.
Right, and that may not be on there, but there's at least one.
No, I don't see anything. I'd have to turn on a light and look at my For our listeners, I am such a nerd that I keep my Criterions separate from my Blu-rays.
Well, you don't want them to be
and
tainted.
Then my Blu-rays separate from my DVDs, and then my DVDs separate from my copies.
So basically what you're saying is you're a huge fan of segregation.
Yeah. Filmic segregation. By format, it just doesn't seem... And I picked that up from you, by the way, because you had your Criterion.
Oh, yeah.
You had your Laserdiscs.
I'm totally a bigot in that regard.
Yeah, I mean my laser just I found like I shit you not like 100 Criterions in the bin, laser discs.
Dope.
In the bin at the half price books on Westheimer and Montrose.
Oh yeah.
And so I dropped $200 fast.
Sure. Which is a hell of a deal and a terrible waste of money. It's
Yes.
both at the exact same time.
Yes.
Do you have a laser player that works?
I do.
Oh, better than me. Mine broke.
Yeah. It did? Oh.
Yeah.
No. You got to find somebody to.
I just need to buy a replacement.
Yeah.
Which is probably not.
They're still out there.
Yeah.
I got a VCR. I like a working VCR.
Why?
So I can watch Star Wars on the original videotape.
Have you?
Not yet.
I bet you're horrified by the picture quality if you do.
You know, I watched something on a videotape a couple weeks ago, and it's something that I recorded off of HBO. It was so bad.
I'm sure, yeah.
And then you go to the video. It was a collection of videos actually off of not just HBO, but it was a collection of videos that I taped off of MTV.
Okay.
In the 80s. I don't know, 87, 88, 89. And so it's 6 hours.
Of Hungry Like the Wolf.
Yeah, that's right. And so I remember In Your Room by the Bangles being at that age, masturbatory material. and I swear not so much anymore.
Not so much?
Like, no.
Some of the magic's gone?
Still a Bengals fan.
Yeah.
Still love that video, but just not nearly as I remember it to be.
Yeah. Yeah, HD has changed your perspective on porn.
HD is different, man. HD is different.
All
right, should we wind this up?
I think that's probably a good idea. You're at 1 hour, 53 minutes, 54.
All right.
And there ain't no one who's listening.
Well, I can't thank you enough for coming by and doing this.
I just hope I didn't drive off any subscribers.
No, I doubt it. I'm not really concerned about this. This podcast is not monetized. I don't do this for anybody else other than
your
me.
Own personal entertainment.
Yeah, I had a great time doing the Terminator, and I hope that you'll be back for some more.
I absolutely would if you'll have me. So definitely listen to it, see if it makes sense. And
I'm going to take a look at the Kingdom of Heaven, and I'm going to we're going to think about the Social Network.
That'll work.
And thanks for coming by.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace out.
Thanks for hanging out with me and Dave while we caught up. He'll be back for future editions of the Super 70 podcast. Super 70 is a podcast meant to play along with the film we are discussing. You don't have to, though, and can go on listening without watching anything. I would, however, recommend that you watch the film we are discussing before listening to the Super 70 podcast. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and my website at www.thatdylandavis.com. All music on this podcast was written and recorded by Rosalind McPhail. You can reach her at soundcloud.com. If you're offended by the interpretation of this film, please let me know by sending me an email at thatdylandavis@gmail.com. If you like the podcast, please express this on iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud by leaving a rating and a review. You can also find me on Twitter at thatdylandavis and find my books on Amazon.com. This is Dylan Davis, and we'll still meet next time at Jack Rabbit Slims.